tonight. Which one is more concerning? The fact that Vandal Savage is a serial killer, or that he likes to be called Daddy? The Green Lanterns show that they truly do believe in the right to a speedy trial. And Blue Beetle has a problem with his Little Beetle. All that and more tonight on the Not So New 52. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 37 of the Not So New 52. I am your host and there's no culling this week. I'll say that again, there is no culling this week. I know, I say this for pretty much the entire past month of, oh, the culling, it's so bad and I hate reading it and oh God, why would you do this to me, Scott Lobdell, but there is none this week and I feel really good about that and I want to share my joy with you, so let's just bask in that for a second. Feels good. Anyway, books. This week, 14 of them on May 16th, 2012. And they include the number 9 issues of Batwoman, Birds of Prey, Catwoman, Nightwing, Red Hood and the Outlaws, Supergirl, Green Lantern Corps, Captain Atom, DC Universe Presents, Justice League, Wonder Woman, Blue Beetle, and Legion of Superheroes. Additionally, we have the number 8 issue of The Shade. You know, I've been told that this intro bit is a part where, if I'm not going to be doing it later on, I should be talking to you, the viewer, the listener, the person, and bonding with you in some way. So, how about that game? Crazy, right? And the weather. Wow. It's cold and or hot, depending on where you are. All right, let's get into the books. Birds of Prey number 9, written by Duane Swierczynski, art by Foreman. This is a tie-in, ostensibly, to Night of the Owls. But it's weird because every other one of them had a very specific target that the Talon was going after. This one he's just causing mayhem, as far as I can tell, or maybe he is after one of the Birds of Prey, but it doesn't make that clear. Anyway, we pick up 1842, where we're getting, this guy, he's just pontificating. He's just like, oh, the streets are ruled with cruel men, and I am here to deliver justice, and blah, blah, blah. And we just see how he has literally been slaughtering people constantly. But then we cut to Night of the Owls, and Katana and Canary are limping away from the fight. And it's like, did we kill that guy or not? And apparently the fight with the Talon's already been ongoing, and apparently Katana's sword cannot steal his soul because he has no soul to steal. He's already dead, more or less. And then we see the Talon jump in and just start attacking them. Canary delivers a sonic cry, like point-blank range, which apparently should have shattered his skull, but he's, of course, still standing afterwards. So the Talon keeps on attacking, and we see through the Talon's eyes that he sees everything in, mid-1800s, garb, the way that they're dressed. Katana's an old-fashioned samurai, and I can only assume that Black Canary is some sort of, Union soldier. I don't know. Regardless, he keeps on attacking them. And then we get the lowdown on what happened earlier on of how Batgirl called the Birds of Prey and said the whole thing of, hey, Talons are attacking, Batman needs help. I know you guys aren't technically Bat family, but can you get in on this anyway? And then at that point, they went to go get Poison Ivy. And Poison Ivy had already been attacked by this Talon, and they couldn't find her. They could only find, traces of her, aka it looks like her skin is literally dangling from this pole, but I guess she just sheds anyway. So they keep on fighting him, trying to just get an upper hand, but they can't do anything about it. So they fall back to the same church that was actually in the very first issue, and they're like, I fought here before, I know all the tactical advantages, let's go in there. So they head in, and then they try to do a half-ass thing where they're like, I'm sorry, I'm not on my A game, Katana. I'm still reeling from the fact that the death of my husband was brought up. And it's like, yeah, okay, don't try to further the plot here. Just keep it going. So at this point, the Talon is approaching just very slowly. And then we hear the sound of a car pulling forward. The Talon looks over. He sees a chariot pulled by horses. But it's, once again, Starling in a car who just crashes into the Talon and then crashes into the church through several walls, taking him the whole way through. And she hops out and she's like, all right, girls, no need to thank me. Glad I could do whatever. But then they're like, no, he's not dead. Focus. And she looks over at him again, and we see his mask has come off at this point, and he's got like the full-on Colonel Mustard style, like sideburns going into the mustache look. And he starts attacking her, picking her up by her throat or whatever. She fires off some gunshots. Everyone else starts trying to jump in as well. Until finally Batgirl comes in as he's about to snap the neck of Katana. She strings up her, like, I don't know what you want to call her, grappling hook, the rope specifically, around his neck and then strings him up from the top of the church. And that gives him at least a second to focus. And they're just like, okay, these are Talons. They can't be killed. They're only stopped by cold or, like, significant beatings. So, what are we going to do here, ladies? And the Talon snaps the rope and they just start running away. And really, they don't have much of a plan at all, but they are, as they're talking, they're like, okay, we just need to, let's go down to the train station because apparently there is a car there that is hauling frozen meats and it has to stay cool. So if we can get him locked in there, he should cool down to the point where he isn't going to be a problem. So they get him over to the train station and they manage to tackle him inside of the car and slam the door shut, to which he just pops back out again because why not? And then finally Poison Ivy shows up and is like, hey, let me handle this. And she uses her vines, constricts the guy, and goes down into the car with him. And it's just like, hey, don't worry about it. Plants have the ability to, what do they say here? A hardening mechanism to survive the extreme cold. Just lock me in here and then don't forget about me. Thaw me out whenever you get this wherever it needs to be or whenever Batman's ready to go. And so they locked the door with her in there. And I was like, wow, that was crazy. By the way, Starling, where have you been? And she's like, don't worry about it. Though I did make a promise to Poison Ivy way back when we first met. And I think it's time that we need to follow up on it. And she's like, well, what do you need? And Starling tells him we need some machetes and a plane. And I don't know what promise they're talking about. This is all fresh to me. I genuinely no clue what's going on. As is the normal marching order for this book nowadays. Okay, so I didn't dislike this Talon, but again, I feel like they didn't give him a target. I feel like when the Court of Owls let him out, they were just like, and you just go mess stuff up. And then it's like, cool, I can do that. It's fine. It's okay. It's not great. I vaguely remember a different Bat book saying something about we have to go find the birds of prey. And I thought that would result into something in this book, but it didn't. Because it definitely wasn't Batgirl who said it. I don't know who did. So, yeah, that happened. Art-wise, I'm a big fan of Travel Foreman. This isn't quite the best, and I think I blame the colorist more than anything. Travel Foreman's been working on Animal Man, and his colorist and him really have a style that sticks out crazy. This one is just, it's okay. It isn't great. It's pretty standard overall when you really get down into it. Yeah, not much to really be said. I mean, it's a pretty just average book overall. I'm going to give it a 6. A lot of it comes down to I just don't care what the Birds of Prey are up to because it doesn't feel like it matters anymore because nothing makes sense. They just randomly do things and that's it nowadays. Like, now we're just doing a trip for Poison Ivy. Cool. What happened to the other plot? Whatever. We were kind of done with that. So yeah, 6 for this, and we'll see what happens at the end of next issue, whether or not I'm going to have any faith left at all in this book. Catwoman number 9, written by Judd, Winick, art by Guillem, March. This is a tie-in to Night of the Owls, and the Talon in this story is going after Penguin, which, in fairness, was revealed last issue. Also, last issue, we had Catwoman and Spark, was his name, are making their plans to go rob Penguin the next night. So, of course, everything's all going to collide together. Anyway, Gotham, back in 1665, I think this one might actually be the oldest of them, so far at least, and we see just this sequence of Talon going and hunting this naked fat guy. And the overarching narrative over it is just saying, like, hey, this Talon, he's good. He's really good at what he does, but he messed up really bad this time because he has this misplaced sense of honor. And when he saw that the guy was basically dressing for bed, he wasn't, good to put up a fight at all or able to do anything. The Talon gave him one of his own daggers and says, like, all right, this is a fair fight now. I will give you time. And then the dude just bolted out the door and started screaming for help, which, of course, he was immediately put down, but he did get the attention of a bunch of, like, British soldiers, and so the Talon had to kill all of them, which is bringing a lot of unwanted attention. So the Court of Owls is like, all right, he's too much trouble. We're going to put him on ice, and may he be buried with his shame of failure to the court. And then we cut to now. We have Catwoman and Spark overlooking the Penguin thing and just saying, like, all right, well, hopefully nothing goes wrong tonight. Womp womp. Then we see the Court of Owls just letting everybody out, and they're giving their missions to everybody. And the one guy's like, I am disgraced. I still live with my shame. And the Court of Owls guys is like, what's this guy's problem? What's he doing? It's like, apparently he's disgraced and still lives with his shame. And so they're like, okay, well, if you want your honor back, go kill Penguin. That sounds like a good enough thing. So Catwoman and Spark are mounting up to get ready to attack or break into Penguin's place as soon as he leaves to go to a club. However, apparently some deal has been falling through on Penguin's end, so he's not able to leave for the club quite yet. He's waiting on a call to come in. And as the one of his henchmen is ordering Penguin a drink, guy on the other end suddenly drops out, so he's like, better go check on him. Opens up the door, Talon bursts in, and immediately kills all of Penguin's goons. So then he's just standing over top Penguin. Penguin's like, whatever you're being paid, I'll pay you tenfold. And he's like, this isn't about the money, this is about my honor. And then he looks over and he sees one of his daggers in a glass case that Penguin has, the same one Catwoman was going to steal. And he's like, why do you have that? He's like, I collect bird things, that's kind of my thing. He's like, oh my God, this is fate. You have literally, oh God, this falls right into my whole honor thing. So he's about to kill Penguin, and Catwoman and Spark are looking on. Spark's like, wow, okay, well, this went kind of south. Let's get out of here. And Catwoman's like, yeah, it did go south. Ugh. And she jumps in through the window to save Penguin. They start fighting briefly. Spark eventually joins in and is just like, hey, all right, let's knock him out and then get out of here. And, of course, he shocks him, thinks he knocked him unconscious, but in actuality just gets right back up. And the fight scene continues. They think they snapped his neck just to show once again how tough the Talons are. But then he gets up and his mask fell off, and we see that he's not okay. Like, he's just constantly like, I will not let you dishonor me. I need this. Just let me have this. And Penguin's just cowering behind his desk. Until finally the Talon uses a rope to wrap up around Spark's neck. Spark can't reach behind him to do his power or anything like that. And he's like, I need those knives so that I can be whole again. And if I'm whole again, the Court of Owls will think I'm worthy. And please just let me have this. And then Catwoman sees how just messed up he is. He's like, hey, I know where the other knives are. There are 5 of them, right? I have the other 4. I will get them to you. Just let him go. And he's like, you promise? And she's like, I totally. Because, yes. And so he starts letting Spark down, and then immediately Penguin, from behind the desk, uses his umbrella gun to just shoot him through the head. And Catwoman's like, you didn't have to do that. I kind of meant what I was saying. And she's like, whatever. Anyway, I owe you one, and that means something. So Spark and Catwoman, Spark's like, let's just get the hell out of here. And Catwoman's like, yeah. And so she actually manages to take the Talon's body up to, I believe, the top of GCPD, with the 5 daggers, allowing him to be buried in peace, and then turns on the bat signal to let Batman know that, hey, this is up here. And the whole overarching narrative on this is, like, it's sometimes the things that seem like they're monsters are actually just misunderstood, and I know that better than anyone. And that's where we leave off. I know this is going to lead more into like more Spark stuff and more of like this specific plot, but this does feel like just kind of the ending of it. And I think that's really good for a one shot, like a tie in, I should say. For people who aren't regularly reading the story, it did a good job of setting up, okay, they're looking to steal from Penguin. You didn't need to know all the backstory of like what they're looking for, why. They're just looking to steal from Penguin. Then you get the whole events of the book, and then at the end, it feels like an actual sort of ending. And I think that's actually very good for someone who's not planning on coming back to Catwoman again. So, no, in terms of tie-in, I really do like this. Writing-wise, it's fine. I do, just as an overarching thing on all of these Night of the Owls, I like how they're giving each of these talents their own personality, their own thing. You know, they're not just all, I am good killer and therefore I kill good. It's everyone's got their own thing. And this guy has like some weird honor-bound thing going on, and it's unique. I like the way they're handling that. Art-wise, it's fine. I don't have much to really complain about. One of the goons has like a really weird face thing going on, but I think that's intentional. And everything else is pretty good overall. So, yeah, no, I think this is actually one of the better tie-ins to Night of the Owls in general. So I'm going to go ahead and give this one I'll give it a 7. Still has a few flaws in there, but for the most part, it is very, very good, and I am looking forward to seeing what happens in the rest of Catwoman. Nightwing number 9, written by Kyle Higgins, art by Eddy Barrows and Andre Guinaldo. This is the second part of the Night of the Owls tie-in for Nightwing, and last issue wrapped up with Nightwing going to protect the mayor, and we see a Talon coming to attack, and the Talon is actually Nightwing's great-grandfather. I think it's only one great, William Cobb. And we got some backstory on how he fell in love, and then everything went to hell, and he was betrayed. So let's see what happened there. I'm just going to go ahead and give all of William's backstory, which is actually split up over the course of the issue between fighting with Nightwing, but it's easier to just get it all out in one bit. So we open up, and he's basically saying, like, yeah, I was still in love with Amelia, my one and only, but I, of course, was on the road for weeks at a time as I was in Haley's circus, until one day her father, who seemingly didn't really care much for her or me, called me aside and wanted to have a chat. And he basically told him, like, hey, no matter what you do, you're still not worthy of my daughter. Like, you're always going to be the kid from the mud. You're always going to have mud on your shoes, so you're never going to be able to change that. And then we cut to, throughout the entire time that they're dating, they find out that Amelia gets pregnant, and they're trying to figure out what to do, because the father's approval does mean something. Like, they have to be able to get that. And in the end, they realize, look, it's not going to work, that they can't manage to do this. So they end up going their separate ways. The father marries off Amelia to apparently a second cousin, thus keeping it all in the family, and no one knows the true identity of their child. And so, of course, Cobb is very upset about that, and he stops and he thinks to himself, like, in Gotham, nothing can change. It's always going to be like this. This is how it is. And Haley, the guy who's running the circus at that time, is like, what if I told you there is another way? Wink, wink. And he basically tells him, work for the Court of Owls. You can be a Talon. You can actually, like, fight against the system that's causing these issues. So it shows a bit of his training montage where he is literally put in the labyrinth that Batman was put in Batman number, I think it was 6 or so. And he's just driven mad. But when he gets back out, he's trained, he's strong, he's able to fight, and he's one by one taking out all these people in the city who were doing the same things as Amelia's father. But then we see one night that he realizes that his son, his heir, his true son, needs to be able to follow in his footsteps and do that same thing. So he breaks into the Crown's residence at night, steals his son, and says, raise him in the circus and make sure that he knows that he is neither the black nor the white. He is the gray son of Gotham. Get it? Gray son. Ha 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 ha. Anyway, so that's the gist of his origin story. But then we cut through the rest of the fight scene is going on. So Nightwing has a bunch of daggers in him. He tells the mayor and the deputy to get to a vault or some sort of panic room and stay in there. Don't open it for anyone. And Nightwing tackles Talon out of a window down multiple stories. Nightwing managed to use one of his grapples to survive the fall, but the Talon hits a car on the street head on, which of course does nothing to him because he's able to fix all of his bones or whatever. So a bit more of a fight scene breaks out, and a lot of this boils down to William saying, look, you were meant to be another Talon. You were meant to be someone who could upset the system, who could make a change, but instead you're still playing second best. You are still second to the damn Batman, and you will never be able to step out of that shadow if you do that. And Nightwing's like, shut up, that's not how it is at all. So they keep on fighting, and Talon is landing some really brutal hits into Dick. He's bleeding out pretty bad. He stumbles his way down into a subway station, to which the Talon picks him up and pins him to a wall and just tells him, like, you rejected the future that I laid out for you. You gave up on that destiny, and now this is the penalty for it. But then Dick reveals that, in actuality, this was all his plan, because down in the subways, in order to insulate their cables or whatever, they started funneling in liquid nitrogen for cooling. So he stabs one of the tubes for liquid nitrogen, which causes the Talon to basically instantly freeze. And he gives one last dire warning of, like, you will never escape this, as Nightwing picks up the Talon, walks out of the subway station and says, like, destiny schmestiny. And that's it. That's where that whole thing leads off. I genuinely thought this was very good. As a two-parter, I don't know how I feel about just this one issue individually, but as a two-parter, I think that it was the same Talon that Batman was fighting for the entirety of the lead up to this event. It was a lot of character development getting in there. It basically said how he is the best Talon. He was the one that's the reason he was unfrozen to begin with, to take out all these people, was because he is the best Talon. And I think it does a good job of showing, like, yeah, no, he definitely had the skills for it. So overall, I would give this one a 7.5, and I think the only reason I'm that low, because it does feel like I should be higher, the only reason I'm that low is the fact of it doesn't feel quite like an earned win to me. Like, yes, Dick managed to get the upper hand just by being a little bit more clever, but when it comes down to being the best Talon and one that, like, Batman had, like, an impossible time defeating, I don't know. I feel like there should have been a little bit more to it in terms of Dick having to overcome something, but instead he was just like, nah, my first plan worked, like, whatever. So 7.5 for that, but overall, art's great. Any segment here where he's talking about his past, I think I said before, looked great. It still does. This last page, it's got this white border around it, and it's particularly, like, stylized of the Talon mask just pinned to a wall. Looks great. I cannot speak poorly on the art at all. So yeah, no, 7.5 for this, and I'm looking forward to seeing where Nightwing continues post-Talons now, I guess. Red Hood and the Outlaws number 9, written by Scott Lobdell, art by Kenneth Rocafort. This is a Night of the Owls tie-in, and the person that we have to protect from a Talon is, of course, Mr. Freeze. Last issue, Jason was contacted by Alfred, although indirectly, he kind of just eavesdropped on the conversation, and found out that Mr. Freeze needed some protecting. And this issue basically picks up at the exact same spot where they're overlooking where Mr. Freeze's lab, I guess you could say, is, and it is a completely, like, an entire city block just covered in ice. And they're like, okay, cool, so just to get this straight, we need to save Mr. Freeze from an assassin, but also save the city block from Mr. Freeze. And they're like, yep, sounds like the plan. So immediately Jason's like, all right, here's the thing, I'm going to take care of Mr. Freeze. I'm going to go get him. You guys start defrosting the city block, and we will meet up after then. So Starfire, of course, has no problem just melting away all the ice with her power set. And he's being very angsty, as he usually is. But the rest of the team is calling him out on how angsty Jason's being. And he's like, well, yeah, like, I'm sort of kind of working with Batman, and that's not really something I enjoy doing. So I don't know why I'm doing it, but here we are. So anyway, he busts into the building, and there's a little comedic beat of him busting into the wrong floor, and he has to go up to the right one. But he sees the Talons already attacking Mr. Freeze, and Mr. Freeze is just pissed off at the Talon as well. So they're fighting each other. Red Hood jumps in the middle, and he's like, What the heck is going on around here? You guys need to stop fighting right now. And Mr. Freeze is pissed off because I guess it says later on that the Court of Owls was funding him and using his tech for the purposes of preserving their talons. And he didn't know. And now that they came to kill him because he's a loose end, he's super pissed off that that's what it was. So, yeah, there's that. But anyway, he arrives and he tells Jason, like, what the... Dude, they're out there killing a whole bunch of people. I don't need protection. Get the hell out of my lab. And he's like, I'm trying to help you, Victor. And he's like, screw you. And he freezes Jason's hand solid with a block of ice. And as soon as Jason's like, what'd you do that for? He's like, because you're useless. And you let the assassin get away. And he's like, good point. Hold on. I'll be right back. So he goes and chases down the Talon, who... There's some sort of like Chinatown parade or something going on. It's just a thing in the background. And I don't know, they're talking and they're saying, like, the Talon reveals that he is undead. He's come back to life. And Red Hood's like, wow, we have a lot in common. Ain't that something? So as they're running down the streets of the city, Jason meets back up with Roy and Starfire. And he's like, all right, new plan, guys. You guys go up, take care of Mr. Freeze. Like, don't kill him, but just make sure he's not a problem. And I'm going to go take care of the Talon. Okay, bye. So Starfire goes up and starts talking to Victor. He's like, hi, I'm here to help you and make sure everything's okay. And she gets blasted by a freeze gun and immediately just starts cursing out in her alien language. And Victor comes over to the window. It's just like, go away. Get off my property. Next person to come in here is getting the horror of frozen death. And so Starfire shoots back up again very angrily. Then we see Jason following after the Talon, and the Talon is doing a whole bunch of acrobatic moves, and it just so happens to move by a billboard for Haley's Circus, and those two little wires in Jason's head connect, and he's like, wait a minute, that can't be coincidence. What's going on around here? And the Talon leads him to this big empty lot, and Red Hood's like, hold on, this empty lot is where Haley's Circus sometimes was. Did you run away to the circus when you were young? Is this a deep, dark secret for you? And he's like, when I was made a Talon, they took away my body, but never my soul. And, they're literally having a heart-to-heart. And Jason's like, I didn't expect that to go this way. All right. So anyway, we see Starfire fighting Mr. Freeze. And she's just kind of chewing out Mr. Freeze for working with the Court of Owls at all. And he's like, I don't care about their whole ruling class thing. They said they wanted to get rid of Batman. That's what I was in for. And while she's distracting him, Roy comes up, shoots an arrow at his dome over his head, and it's a shock arrow, so it knocks him out. End of his story. So then we cut back to Jason and Talon, and I guess the heart-to-heart was going well because the Talon has demasked himself. He said his name is Zhao Lung, and he doesn't like being a Talon anymore, and he wants Red Hood to put him out of his misery. So he hands him his gun and whatever and says, like, please let me go out on my own terms. And Red Hood's like, all right. And he kills the Talon. So then cut to, I don't know, maybe like half an hour later, Batgirl standing on top of the GCPD. She's taking care of her Talon from her book, and she's waiting for Batman just to see that he's okay. And Red Hood comes by and drops off Mr. Freeze, and he's like, hey, yeah, I helped you guys tonight. I can be nice. Maybe try to remember that from time to time. And Batgirl's like, that doesn't forgive all the horrible things you've done. And she's like, all right, whatever. I tried. Tell Batman you're welcome. Peace. And he just bails out the rest of his team. And that's it. Pretty wrapped up all in one story there. It explained everything to open with and then, cleared it out just as quick. I don't dislike it as much as I disliked some other issues. Primarily because it's not trying to be just quippy. It's telling the story, and it does have actually a little bit of heart in there. But it also, sometimes it does still have quips. I don't know. There's one part in here where he's like, maybe being home again makes me anxious, confused, ambivalent. Who could blame me? And I'm like, shut up. It's just a little bit too much on some sides. But no, it wasn't an awful issue. I'd say 6.5. That sounds about right. 6.5 for this. And honestly, I feel like the biggest flaw in terms of just keeping it as its own story is that the Talon felt like such a non-threat. It was just a dude who couldn't even stand up to Mr. Freeze, in close combat, mind you, and then just said, you know what? Nah, I want to die. That's it. So, yeah, kind of a non-threat there. But, hey, the issue as a whole, it's done with, and there's not really much leading out of it, so we'll see what happens with Red Hood in issue number 10. Batwoman number 9, written by J.H. Williams III and W. Haden Blackman, art by Trevor McCarthy. We are still doing the multi-threaded story thing where it's jumping around in time. So the Right Now story last left off with Soon attacking Falchion, who I guess is her brother, I think. And yeah, she betrayed him. So this issue picks up with Batwoman and Soon both teaming up to fight against Falchion. There's some back and forth where he's like, oh, You've betrayed me, Soon. How dare you? And Batwoman's like, oh, we just care about getting those kids to safety and blah, blah, blah. But eventually Soon manages to drop some DEO branded shadow bombs, which just make the entire room instantly and completely dark. Soon and Batwoman manage to get in contact with each other, and they put on some goggles that they're able to see through it. But they're like, okay, well, he could be anywhere, so be on the lookout. Then we cut over to Jacob Kane's story 1 week ago, and he's awakening in the hospital to the sound of Beth's heart monitor going flat. And he's freaking out, telling her, oh, you gotta fight, you gotta be like your cousin Kate. And eventually the doctors start escorting him out of the room so that they can, save Beth's life. Then we cut to Morrow's story 2 weeks ago, and Morrow's with Killer Croc standing on the shore of the place where La Llorona was put to rest at the end of the last arc. And basically he's just saying, like, hey, look, I lost one of my agents. I need to get her back. So she brings La Llorona back from the dead again. And it's like, you can't just go. I didn't tell you can go. The bell does not dismiss you. Come back here. And yeah, so now he's got her back under control again. Maggie's story, 3 nights ago, we see that she's on a yacht where Falchion is actually hosting the party. It's some sort of big ball thing going on. And they're just talking briefly. It doesn't, she's kind of interrogating him, but not, super hard. And he picks up on it. He's like, are you interrogating me? She's like, oh, sorry, force a habit at work. And, but then as they go into, the main part of the yacht, they see Kate and Soon descending the stairs out of costume, and Maggie gets a little bit jealous because she has no idea who Soon is, and she's like, excuse me, who is that? And also Soon is wearing a mask, so that's why Maggie doesn't recognize her from last issue. And she's like, I don't know, some musician that chatted me up in line at the bathroom, so what are we doing? And Maggie gets a call from Bullock about a kidnapping, and she's like, well, now hold on, Maggie. Do we have to go do our job? Do you have to do your job right now? She's like, I know, but let me make it up to you. And she's like, all right, I guess. And so they kiss and they go on their way. Chase's story 4 days ago, we see how they managed to get onto that ship, and basically a helicopter over top of Falchion's yacht, and they're trying to figure out a way in. Soon saying like, "There's no way." Like every way that you have access to his thing is completely covered. He has like magical spells going on to make sure that you can't access. And he's like, "All right, well then we need in like a more inconspicuous way where he doesn't know we're coming until we're already there." And as he's trying to get answers out of Soon, Agent Chase like dangles her off the edge of the helicopter saying like, "Tell me where I can get in." And so she points out the yacht and says, "That's it. You got to be on there as like a guest sort of thing." And apparently Kate, being the socialite that she is, she was invited to a gala that's going to be going the next night. So Chase is like, "All right, the two of you are going to go to that gala and you're going to break in, you're going to find whatever we need to get down into the central part of the base." And Kate's like, "She doesn't get to see my secret identity. What the hell's wrong with you?" And she's like, "She can and she will. Get over it." So then we go back to Kate's story, which is the same night as Maggie's story at the gala. And they're in Falchion's room and they're like, "Why are there no guards or anything?" It's like, "I told you, he put up massive security. He's not expecting anybody to be able to get past magic spells. So we're probably going to be fine in here." But they're looking through his room and they come across a chest that has a pretty difficult lock. And while Kate is jimmying it, basically Soon has her little thing of like, "Oh, my brother sold me to become Falchion's lieutenant," and blah blah blah. Just going through her whole backstory. But it's obvious that she's like, "I don't want to work for Falchion anymore. I don't want to work for the DEO. I want to work with you," specifically Kate. So hitting on her a little bit. But finally they get into the chest and they see a map to get down into the central facility, where we pick up in today's story, where Batwoman and Soon are still in the darkness. And Falchion is also able to see them as well. So he comes at him with his sword. They just start attacking him. And then eventually Soon shoots another arrow into him, and Batwoman plants a small explosive, as far as I can tell, into his eye, to which, of course, it explodes. And it's kind of hard to tell. He almost looks cybernetic, but I can't tell, honestly. But anyway, Soon got injured during the fight, and Batwoman goes to check on her, and she's like, "Hey, are you okay?" And then Soon just gets up and kisses Kate. And that's where we leave off of. After all that, oh boy, got a love triangle. This was okay. This was fine. I don't know. I think I said last time, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I'm really tired of this multi-threaded thing, because it's just, like, the Jacob Kane stuff specifically just seems really out of place, as well as the Morrow story. I know it's all probably leading to something, but I'm sick of it, you know? Especially because they know it's confusing because they're saying how many nights ago it was. And if it were a thing of, I was reading this all at once and could keep track of, like, okay, this is Tuesday, this is last Wednesday or something like that, maybe it would work better. But I'm reading this month to month, and by the time that I get to the next issue, I'm like, I don't remember what 3 days ago was in comparison to all the other events. So yeah, I'm already going to be docking points for the fact this narrative device is still going on. I think it might be done. Never mind, I looked ahead, it's not. So keep docking points for that. But art's fine. It's got some cool page layouts in terms of, there's like a 3-page spread in here that you can't really appreciate unless you are looking at the whole thing all at once. It makes a giant bat symbol. But yeah, no, story-wise, it's just, all right, whatever. I feel like we have to be close to the end because Falchion is quote-unquote dead, but we'll see where that goes. So overall, 6.5 for this. And yeah, not much more to really say on it. Supergirl number 9, written by Michael Green and Mike Johnson, art by Mahmud Asrar. Last issue left off with a magical demon-y guy attacking Supergirl, and we find out that her new made friend of Siobhan, I forget how I said it last issue, is Silver Banshee. So this issue picks up 13 years ago in Ireland, where a family is trudging through the fields of Ireland, and they have a young girl with them. And an older man approaches saying like, "Oh, you guys look lost." And the boy of the group's like, I know who you are. Back off. Go away." And he's like, all right, I'll drop the charade. And it's revealed to be I don't think they ever say his name beforehand, but they say it at the end of the issue, is Black Banshee. So, yeah. And regardless, that is Sayoban's true father. And along with them is, I believe, their mother and her brother. And basically, the brother's like, get Sayoban out of here, Mom. Get out of there. And Black Banshee says there's, like, she has the bloodline, she has the power, you don't, so I'm going to take her and raise her. And then he pulls out, the son pulls out some rules lawyering and just like, you forget that I still do have the bloodline, regardless of if I have power, and I can end the curse of our family by willingly giving my soul up to you. And so he does, and they both just disappear into nothing, and Sayoban's like, oh no, where's my brother? So, cut to now, and we see them fighting against each other, and Supergirl's talking to herself in her head like, I just wanted a peaceful night. I just wanted one night. How hard was that? But no, I can't even get that. That's great. And Sayoban's telling her, all right, get out of here. I'll take on my father. You just go, because I don't want him to get a hold of you. So they fight briefly. Sayoban fires off some weird laser thing out of her mouth. They all have, like, magic, but also mixed with screaming. But it's not Black Canary powers. It's a bit confusing. Regardless, she shoots him through the head with like a little magic beam, and then they start making their way out into the alley nearby. And Supergirl's like, hey, you want to tell me what's going on? And she's like, family curse. Thought I had it under control. Kind of losing it right now. I'm in terrible pain and terrible danger. And Supergirl's like, all right, I'm already suited up. Let's go. Let's fight this thing. So Black Banshee pops out through the wall. And Supergirl tries to attack it, but it just blows him back. And some of the passerbys are like, hey, isn't that lady from who like beat up the monsters earlier on today? And Supergirl, her powers are going haywire after being hit by Black Banshee. And she can only see everybody as like X-ray. So she has no idea what's going on. One person goes up and tries to like put his hands on her, just like console her. And she just backhands him into a car. So everyone's like, Jesus Christ, what's going on here? Sayoban, meanwhile, is fighting off Black Banshee and threw a couple of cars into him. Doesn't really do much. Supergirl tries to come up to Sayoban and be like, hey, can you tell me what's going on? And she loses herself for a second. She's like, get out of here unless you want to be next. But then she realizes, she's like, sorry, that's the magic. Family is cursed. It's magic. It's really hard to explain, but I will explain everything once we deal with this. But while she's trying to, Black Banshee wakes up and fires like a magic blast through Silver Banshee. So that clearly wasn't going well. Meanwhile, Black Banshee gets a hand on Supergirl and is like, that's weird. I can't devour your soul. Well, guess I'm just going to have to beat you to death. And he proceeds to like do the Hulk against Loki thing a little bit. Until finally, Kara's like, I feel my power surging within me. I have to do something. And she lets out like a scream against Black Banshee, but that's not her power, so she just screams at Black Banshee. And then Black Banshee lets out another one at her, throwing her through like several trees and buildings. Some more passerbys are like, oh my God, are you okay? But now she can't control her heat vision, and she feels it building up. So she's like, everyone's got to get out of here. But she can only speak Kryptonian, so nobody can understand. And she starts firing off laser blasts into cars nearby. Silver Banshee comes up, covers up her eyes, and as doing so, the rest of her body starts like surging with energy, and she's just letting off intense amounts of heat that are literally setting all the trees on the street on fire. And she feels like she's going to explode from all this energy, but she's like, okay, I only have one chance to stop him. This is my plan. And she willingly like dives into the body of Black Banshee, thus being absorbed by him. And he's like, dude, your friend just willingly gave up her soul to me. That was stupid. Now I've got her power. Anyway, I'm gonna kill you. And he holds up Silver Banshee and says all those things. And that's it. That's where the issue leaves off. It was good. I liked it. I thought it was pretty solid. It's pretty much out of nowhere. Like, I know this was all set up last issue and like we're just following forward from that. But like, I don't know. I feel like this is one of those things where it's like, okay, so we're just doing this then. But I guess that also could be set up with the World Killers arc as well. Supergirl just kind of stumbles into a lot of stuff where she doesn't really have any reason to, and it just happens to her. But no, it's fine. It's good. I don't know exactly what's going on with Silver Banshee. I'm not super familiar with her as a character. I think she's a hero based off this, but she doesn't look it. She's very skull based. So I don't know. I guess we'll see if there's some sort of change, or maybe she's just going to be around for a while. Doesn't look like it, but maybe. So yeah, scoring wise, oh, and then I guess art. Art is very good. They do a good job of representing the abilities and the power of Silver Banshee and Black Banshee. And Black Banshee specifically has this glow about him that gives him just this very, I don't know, ethereal sort of feel to him. So yeah, overall, I give it a 7.5. I think it's very solid, but I don't know entirely. Basically, Black Banshee took responsibility for the fact that Kara's powers are surging. Like, it's something he did, but I don't know how. Like, I guess magic. That's the short answer. How'd he do it? Magic. Okay, how'd that work? Magic. So yeah, 7.5 for this, and I'm looking forward to seeing how we're going to resolve her being absorbed into a magic ghost man. Green Lantern Corps number 9, written by Peter Tomasi, art by Fernando Pasarin. Last issue left off with the Alpha Corps coming in and accusing John Stewart of committing murder, because he did. And this issue is them just saying the exact same thing. And it moves really fast after that. There's a lot going on in just this one issue. So moving quickly ahead here, the entire fight that was going on in the bar just immediately stops as soon as these guys enter. Everyone who's not a Lantern immediately leaves, and everyone who is a Lantern is just like, what the heck's going on around here? And they restate, hey, John Stewart, give us your ring, stand down, we need to take you in. And Guy is immediately between the two groups of John and the Alpha Lanterns. He's like, excuse me? John Stewart's the coolest dude ever. There's no way. You guys are a bunch of dicks. And he's like willing to start a fight over them, and he's getting the rest of the Corps all riled up. And basically they're like, yeah, if you want to get to John, you got to get through us. And they're like, okay. And the Alpha Corps just expends an energy that blows away literally everybody else. And they're like, fine. You guys want proof? Here's proof. And they make a construct of the moment of John snapping Kurt's neck. And everyone, Guy's immediately pissed off that he even has to look at it. He's like, turn off these lies, this fake news. And immediately he's going with a baseball bat construct up against the Alpha Corps. And John has to stop in, and he's like, hey, Guy, stop. Here's the thing. I did it. I killed Kurt. It did happen. And immediately then there's a schism in the Green Lantern Corps group around, and they're like, oh my god, he killed a fellow Lantern. And they're like, yeah, but he did it because... And the dude who was with John in that torture cell, he explains the situation of how Kurt was about to betray the Green Lantern Corps, and he had to murder him in order to keep everyone else safe. But they didn't have that in the recording, so it's a schism of who believes that and who thinks that he just killed a Green Lantern Corps member. So John basically steps up to the Alpha Corps, and he's willing to corroborate, and immediately the Alpha Corps is like, hey guys, you did hear him say that he killed it, that he said that he did it, so just want to make sure that's clear. And he's like, that wasn't an admission of guilt, that was just stating the fact of I did kill him, but there is extenuating circumstances. They're like, yeah, sure, all right, whatever, here we go. So they're going off to trial. Immediately, Guy, taking advantage of his position of talking to the Guardians now, goes and he's like, do something. Do anything. You made them. And they're like, yeah, but we let them be independent so that we can look like we're not total corruption, you know? And basically it's a long thing of him trying to convince them, and he's just like, all right, look, you guys aren't clearly not going to side with me. And they're like, yeah, and you need to go take care of the entire Corps because it's kind of a schism forming there. So go make sure everyone's just waiting for the trial and justice will be seen. Also, Guy makes the point that the Earth Lanterns seem to be being picked off from the Corps recently, starting with Hal Jordan, moving on to John Stewart. He's a little bit concerned about that. And as soon as he leaves, the rest of the Guardians are like, yeah, it is kind of working out for us with our evil plans and such that this stuff just keeps happening. Cool. So we cut to the graveyard where they sent up that image of Kurt to last forever in green crystal. And there's some lanterns who are basically busting in there trying to smash his crystal, but smash Kurt's crystal, I should say, because he doesn't belong there. He almost betrayed the Corps. And Guy comes in and stops him at the last second. He's like, he's doing basically the whole Jesus thing. He's like, let thee who have not felt fear smash the first crystal. Anyone? Anyone? Yeah, you've all felt fear before. Yes, he gave in. That kind of sucks. But whatever. He doesn't deserve to not be honored. Get out of here, all you friggin'. So then we cut to the trial. And John's just standing there being like, yes, I killed him. However, he was going to betray the entire Corps and let Oa completely open to those Lantern Keepers. And they said, okay, here's the evidence that we have. And it's just the clip of him snapping Kurt's neck and then escaping with the other lantern. And he's like, here's a question for you. My ring was completely out of juice, and there's no way it could have made that log to begin with. If you have enough for that log, why don't you see the part 10 seconds beforehand where he is about to, like, throw out the secrets of Oa? And they're like, well, it wasn't there. We were working with what we got. So, yeah. And so then he restates how, look, I did this for good reason. I have no evidence to say that it happened except for the word of the other lantern who was there, and you say that his word may not be worth anything, so that's all I got. And so then the Alpha Corps is like, does anybody want to speak as a character witness? And Guy Gardner gets up, and he apparently talks for many hours about how Jon Stewart's the best. We skip all that, and we just see them sitting back in the science cell with Jon saying to Guy, like, that was a great filibuster you gave. Really, really top-notch. So then they're discussing, like, the merits of what happened. And Guy's like, look, we previously, at some point before New 52, had a story where a Green Lantern killed a Yellow Lantern out of, like, cold blood, and that person just got, like, decommissioned. It wasn't a thing of, like, them getting into death sentence or anything. And she's like, yeah, but that was a Green Lantern against a Yellow Lantern. Totally different. And then Guy recounts a story of someone was in the Green Lantern Corps was planning on draining all the power rings and then going rogue. And Guy was literally about to kill them to make sure they couldn't do that. But then he got stopped at the last second by someone, like, messing up his sniper shot. So, like, that was the only difference. He would have been in that same place that Jon was at this point. But either way, he's just saying, like, look, no matter what happens, you're going to get through this. It's going to be fine. And so the guy comes in and he's like, all right, Jon, time to take you out. They've done deliberating. Your verdict is in. So they take him up, and he gives some closing sentences before the sentencing. And he's like, all right, well, I did what I had to do. That's it. And they're like, cool. So the verdict is, Jon Stewart, you are guilty, and we sentence you to death. And that's where we leave off. Hell of a lot in just one issue. I love it, though. It was really good the whole way through. It just boiled down to, it was more, if anything, a Guy story than it was a Jon story. Like, Jon had some stuff, but this was more about Guy's dedication to Jon's, not even innocence, but just knowing that he didn't do it in cold blood. That it was a choice that weighed on him, and he had to make it. And he had to make those tough choices. So, overall, I'm going to give this one an 8. I really do enjoy it. Art-wise is fantastic. There's really nothing in here that I can fault to any real regard. No, it's just a good issue overall. My only complaint with it is that everything from the trial to the end feels pretty rushed. But if they didn't want to do that, they didn't want to do that. And it's not something that I feel like I'm really missing huge parts of, especially if there's, like, no evidence or anything. I feel like I saw all the beats I needed to see. So, solid issue, 8 out of 10. Looking forward to seeing how Jon Stewart's going to get out of this mess. Captain Atom number 9, written by J.T. Krul, art by Freddie Williams II. Last issue left off with Captain Atom having to go to the future to stop the end of the world, pretty much. And last page reveal was that Renita, 20 years in the future, is also got Captain Atom powers, but only in her one hand. That's a thing. So this issue picks up, basically the entirety of the issue is that Captain Atom in 20 years from now is a religion. He is God, and he is something that everyone's just like, yeah, no, he is the one. Huzzah for him. So we see one of his most devoted prophets is Mikey Parker, who was the 10-year-old who had the brain tumor. And he's just recounting how he was a dick when he was a kid, but then he got a brain tumor and Captain Atom saved him, and it made him rethink his life. And he became basically an acolyte for the Church of Chronomota, which I guess is somehow Captain Atom. So immediately Captain Atom, he's still splitting up across the world, trying to find what is going to cause the end of the world. Still no sign of it, but he sees that there's a whole lot less war and hunger and strife, and everyone's like worshiping him, and that's weird to him. He doesn't quite like that, but regardless, he does eventually come across Renita, who is currently stopping some people who are trying to kill like some immigrants or whatever over in the Middle East in Libya, and she's just using her hand to lift up the truck and just disintegrate it into nothing, pure Captain Atom style. But then when she's done dealing with them, she sees one of the immigrants has been shot, and she uses her powers to heal them as well. And she's just like, I am the hand of Captain Atom, and thank you, Captain Atom, for helping me. And Captain Atom pops out, and she's like, how do you know I was here? She's like, you're always here. You're everywhere. You bind us and consume us or whatever. And just as a little postscript on this, throughout this entire next 5 pages of this book, they have a panel of the actual story, but then they have just a little single panel cutaway in 4 cutaway sections of another place that Captain Atom is currently split up and exploring at. So we get to places like New York City, Israel, California, Germany, North Carolina, Japan, it's just everywhere. So he's talking to Renita, and Renita's like, oh, it's good to see you. You're doing a throwback for him. That's 20 years old, but that's cool, and I miss seeing you. But then he's also talking to Mikey at the church, and he's just like, hey, what's going on, Mikey? And Mikey's like, oh, you came. I knew this was a special day. Why do you look like you're 20 years old for him? And he's like, well, how should I look? He's like, oh, your true self, the pure self of Captain Atom. He's like, okay, I guess. Why is today a special day, Mikey? I thought I heard something terrible was going to happen. He's like, oh, well, today's the day we're going to wash away all the evil of humanity in the world. We're going to wipe the slate clean. And it cuts back and forth between him talking to Renita and talking to Mikey. But the Renita story basically wraps up to Renita being like, hey, look, I get it. It was unfair of me to expect you to love me the way a person loves a person. You are so much more than a person. You love me just as much as you love everyone else on world because you're a god. And he's like, I mean, no, but if it gets me in your good graces, kinda. And they share a kiss briefly, but that's basically the end of that. The Mikey part, however, is where it gets crazy, in that they made a giant orb in the name of Captain Atom that's going to wipe the slate clean, and he's just like, I don't want that. Why do you think I want that? And he's like, but because you said you wanted that. And it's like, I would never say that. It's like, well, I'm very confused then. So he's like, you got to stop the orb. You can't let it do its thing. But it's already too late. It's starting to crystallize. It's got some weird purple energy about it. And he's like, oh, too late. Here we go. I have faith that the world will improve. I belong to you, Captain Atom. He's like, crap. So at this point, the orb shocks Captain Atom, and because of the way the energy works, it also shocks every one of his clones around the world, and they all just fall out of existence briefly. And as soon as Captain Atom falls to the ground and being shocked, Mikey's like, you're not a god. If you were a god, you wouldn't be smoked down by this. You're nothing but a pretender. You're a forsaken angel. Bye. And he falls down to this super deep pit that this orb is also going down into, down, seems to the center of the earth. And he's trying to get down to it, but it's also pushing him away from the orb as well, until finally he's just completely encased in earth. And he tries crawling out. He's just pushing his way through as much as he can, trying to get to the surface, but it turns out he accidentally went the wrong way. He's going down instead of up, and he digs into a magma tunnel. And this magma tunnel, because of him messing with it, then spews up. And he's like, oh, crap. This is the volcano thing. from like issue 1, I made the volcano. I went back in time. I'm the one who did this. Ah, crap. So, but now he realizes like, okay, but I can stop this. I can manage to do this. So I have to absorb the energy and stop it from killing everybody. So he absorbs it and puts it back into like the time stream where he was sent from at the beginning of, or in the middle of last issue. And all the other Captain Atoms from throughout time like are there, and he tries to explain to them and like, don't worry, we have the memories of it because you did it. Like, we know it's there now. So yeah, that's an issue. So Mikey is apparently a bad omen. He's a destroyer, and the world's still lost to whatever that purple energy is. And the purple energy is actually in their time stream now. They can see it, and they're like, okay, well, we got to attack it. We got to do something. Here we go. But they realize that it's sentient energy. It has a mind, and it's, as they're attacking it, they're like, wait a minute, we know this thing, or we will know this thing, because in the end, this energy is actually us. At some point in the future, this energy is what Captain Atom becomes. He becomes a destroyer of worlds. He is Chronomota. And that's where it leaves. Yeah, that happened. That was confusing as hell, but I enjoyed it. It was solid. I think that, I mean, the story's clearly not done, and I don't know how the volcano thing came back. I don't know. This is playing with a lot of balls in the air, but I trust the writers, and I do think it's got potential in terms of story of like, if you could literally see through all time and space, but you are beholden to your own choices and your own actions despite the fact you haven't made them, like, this is just a Dr. Manhattan story, is the long and short of it. But it's told with a lot more heart to it because it is Captain Atom. And I appreciate it. I do actually really enjoy that look at it. So overall, I'm going to give this one I give it a 7.5. The only reason that it's low is because it's still very confusing. And I'm not sure if we're going to get payoff on everything that they're setting up here. I feel like there might just be a kind of gist of the vibe of feeling good rather than actually understanding how things resolved. But again, I trust the writers, and I'm willing to see how it ends up in the end. DC Universe Presents number 9, written by James Robinson, art by Bernard Chang, aka the first part of a Vandal Savage story. So that's a thing. No backstory on this, so I guess jumping right into it, we have yesterday evening where a girl is talking to what I can only assume is a friend, maybe a dad. It's kind of unclear, but he's walking about some boy troubles and stuff like that and studying. And then all of a sudden, they're attacked by someone, an unseen figure, and apparently she is a senator's daughter who has gone missing, and it fits the MO of a serial killer who's been abducting women and leaves them alive for a while. So they do still have time, but it is not a lot. And we are currently at the FBI headquarters where there is some higher brass. I think his name is Brian Yu. He is walking through this case with an Agent Sage, who is just your Clarice of the story. This is very Silence of the Lambsy. So she's walking through saying like, all right, so we had a senator's daughter get arrested. You are an expert when it comes to serial killers. You have like analyzed them, and you have found several of them. Like, you are extremely good at this. And it's probably because of your childhood. And she's like, yeah, my childhood. Anyway, can we focus on me going out there and doing the thing I need to do? And she's like, yeah, no, totally. I understand. But, you know, I understand that Belle Reve might not be your favorite place, but you might have to go talk to him, if you know what I mean. And she's like, yeah, no, totally. I should probably get going and do that. And he's like, right, but before you do, let me just show you a video of the last people who went and talked to him. And shows 2 other FBI agents who basically step up and saying, hey, so here's the thing. You have a copycat. And he's talking to a serial killer. And it's Savage. Break the mold, it's Savage. It's not revealed, but it is. So saying, hey, Savage, you've got a copycat killer out there after you. And we want your help to catch him. And he's like, wow, that makes me mad. And he's like, yeah, no, totally. Somebody's copying your techniques. And he's like, no. I don't care what he's doing because he's doing his own thing. You think that I'm so basic that my techniques can just be copied by some no-name. You're the one who's pissing me off here. And he somehow breaks out of his restraints and kills these 2 FBI agents. So that happened. And immediately Agent Sage is like, I don't think he just did that. I think that was a message meant to me. So I gotta go. So she goes to Belle Reve. The whole island's on lockdown because apparently some guy escaped earlier. But she's just like, look, I'm on a clock here, so it doesn't apply to me. Let me in. And so she gets in. She walks down the halls and gets to Vandal Savage, who she welcomes with, hello, father. Yep, Agent Sage, S-A-G-E, is the daughter of Vandal Savage, S-A-V-A-G-E. Get it? Anyway, this is very dense, but it doesn't really say a lot, so I'm going to be skipping a lot. But just know he's very wordy with how he talks. He's very Hannibal Lecter. So he stands up and he's like, hey, how's it going? You sure have grown up. And she's like, yeah, no, ever since you got caught for those multiple murders when I was 10 years old, and then my mom died soon afterwards. Thanks for that, by the way. And he's like, yeah, right, totally. Also, I know everything about you because they let me read the newspaper in this place. I know you changed your name to Sage. I know that you're an FBI agent who focuses on serial killers. Blah, 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 blah. And I know that there's a copycat killer, and that's the whole reason you're here. It's not just to catch up with me. And so she's like, right, totally, awesome. So are you going to help me or not? And he walks through a few like little light things. He's like, here's the thing. The reason I killed people is because I'm immortal. And she's like, right, yeah, here we go. You're immortal. And he's like, yeah, no, totally. I know you don't believe me, but I am. And maybe when you're old and wrinkly, you'll believe me when I still look at the way I do now. But regardless, I did things, the people I killed, out of worship for my gods. And those gods don't exist anymore. Like, nobody worships them but me. So the reason that this copycat killer's doing things is because he saw me do it. He doesn't know the exact reason why I aligned body parts in a certain way or what I did with those entrails. Like, I did those things for very special reasons. So if you can find the differences between that and why he thinks he's doing it, that's how you're going to catch him. And she's like, okay, I guess that's fine. And she also said how there's one little difference. The killer might have superpowers, and in order to help her, she needs his eyes. And I don't know if she means that literally, but regardless, he stands up and he's like, hey, you know that escaped inmate from today? And she's like, yeah, I think they might still be looking for him. It's like, yeah, they definitely are, because if I was, to escape like this inmate, and I was smart, also like this inmate, I wouldn't go towards places where I could possibly make an escape. I would hang out in the areas they would never think to look for me, aka the highest security section of the prison, which is right where we are. And at that moment, the escaped inmate pops out of the vent, and he starts attacking Cassidy, is her name, by the way, Cassidy Sage. So she starts unloading fire, the doors malfunctioning so the guards outside can't get in. And he has some electricity-based superpower, and so she starts just firing off shots. She's just good with a gun. And Vandal's watching on, just like, good, this is great. She eventually ends up throwing a cup of coffee at him and then firing a shot that goes, as far as I can tell, straight through his head. And boom, he's dead. We get a one-panel cutaway to see that the senator's daughter is still alive, but she's being held at like knife point by whoever it is that's doing this stuff. And then we cut to slightly later where Vandal Savage is like, okay, here's the thing. Yes, you can come to me and bring me all the photos you want, but it's not going to do anything. The only way I'm going to be of help is if I'm out there with you. And she's like, that's never going to happen. Are you kidding me? And he's like, that's the deal. Like, that's what we got to do. If you want my help, you have to let me out there with you. And by the way, that's not my only request. I also want you to call me Daddy. Vandal's a creep. But I enjoyed this. I really did. In terms of this book, I don't feel like it's quite as interesting yet as Dead Man was. Dead Man was one. Like, this is definitely Silence of the Lambs, so far at least. It's got a couple little differences, but it's going that same sort of route. Dead Man had more philosophical stuff, and I don't even care about Challengers of the Unknown, so whatever for that. But this is still solid. It's definitely a very interesting start to the story. In terms of Vandal's power, it's just immortality, maybe a little bit of strength, but he's not like, for all intents and purposes, this story is just a normal person story in a superhero world. So I'm interested to see how they fold that out. I'm going to go ahead and give it a 7.5. I do also really enjoy the art in this. It's not my absolute favorite, but it has a cool enough style to it that I feel really fits the tone of the book, with not exactly mood shadowing, but just mood lighting, if that makes any sense. The inks aren't too dark anywhere for shadows, but like the light, there's always like a colored light or something like that. So, super cool. Definitely looking forward to reading the rest of this, however long it may go on. And yeah, Vandal Savage, I guess he's a creep. Justice League number 9, written by Jeff Johns, art by Jim Lee. Last issue was kind of an off-tangent story about Green Arrow not joining the Justice League, so it doesn't matter for this. This issue, however, picks up 4 years ago, Augusta, Maine, where author David Graves, who was mentioned in Justice League number 6, is dying. Just straight up not okay. And his doctor comes in and is like, all right, David, so here's the deal. We ran all the new medications and whatnot, but it's still, you're not receiving it, so not going to work. And he's like, all right, so what's our next move, Doc? And Doc just tells him, have you considered reaching out to the Justice League or Steve Trevor? Like, you wrote their book. You have an in with them. Are you sure? Have you done that? And they're like, they don't care about me. They won't respond to my little problems. And they're like, okay, well, all I can really offer is that you go out on your own terms, if you know what I mean, because it's not going to be good for you later on. And he's like, all right, I guess it's time for my story to begin. And he pulls out a gun and shoots his doctor. And he's like, all right, Justice League couldn't save me, so I have to save me. And yeah, 4 years later, now on to today, Washington, D.C., Steve Trevor's walking out of a liquor store, and he's accosted by paparazzi who are like, hey, Steve Trevor, what was it like having dated Wonder Woman and then lost her? What's it like knowing that every woman from now on is going to be a step down? What's it like knowing she's probably macking on Superman? And Steve gets a little bit upset by that. So he manages to make it home, and I guess he's living with his sister and her kids. I'm confused as to the arrangement here, but regardless, that's his family. And then the rest of this issue is basically just showing how every one of the Leaguers had some moments in their past that were a thing. So Batman is staring at the letter that he got from Flashpoint of, I don't think this has even come up before. He got a letter from his dad from an alternate universe from the Flash when the Flash went there. And he's staring at it. And then we see a moment in his past where he's painting over the walls of his bedroom after his parents died because he's sad and he doesn't want to have anything that reminds him of it at that moment. But then he gets an alert that a Justice League villain named The Key, who has telepath powers, has broken out of Arkham and he's causing chaos. Well, he's causing chaos at Arkham. He's gotten out of his cell. Then we cut over to the Daily Planet, and everyone is talking to each other. Perry, Jimmy, Lois, all making lunch plans with each other. Meanwhile, Clark's just sitting there lonely at his desk. And we see a flashback to him being picked last for the basketball team. Meanwhile, he gets a text from Bruce saying, hey, you got lunch plans? As we see them getting together at Arkham Asylum, just beating the crap out of all the villains who've gotten out of their cells and trying to find where the key is. So Superman's like, there's too many lead pipes. I can't see anything in this place. So how do you have a map? And at that point, Cyborg busts in and says, like, yeah, I'm the map. We need to go down this tunnel or whatever. And they're like, how are you able to navigate this place? And apparently Cyborg's all hooked up to every computer, even Batman's. And then we see his past, which isn't really his past. It's just the things that were in the first arc of the Justice League where, him and his dad don't get along. So yeah, they're busting through walls trying to get to the key. Meanwhile, Steve Trevor, I guess he was only stopping at his sister's place. He comes back home, TV's on, and it's showing the altercation that happened earlier outside the liquor store. And when he finally calms down, he puts his gun away. He hears a voice behind him saying, like, I hope you got to read my book, Steve. I know that you're more than just Wonder Woman's ex. We're going to have a nice long talk. So then we cut over to Green Lantern and Flash, who just finished taking out some major disaster from Weapons Master in Keystone. And basically it's just a back and forth of Flash wants to play the bad cop in interrogating, like, what's going on. And Green Lantern's like, dude, you suck at being the bad cop. And then we get little glimpses of Green Lantern being put in a drunk tank because I guess he had problems before the ring, and Flash just doing his job as a forensics unit. So anyway, finally Flash convinces Green Lantern to let him be the bad cop, and Green Lantern goes up to Weapons Master and he's like, hey man, if it were up to me, I'd let you go, but Flash is really pissed off about what you did to his city, and he's just going to vibrate his hand right into your head and turn your brain to mush. And Weapons Master's like, he can do that? And he's like, yeah, just ask Mongoose. And he's like, who? Exactly. So then Flash comes up, and Flash is like, all right, Weapons Master, you better talk or I'm gonna. And he's like, you're gonna what? And he's like, I'm gonna get upset. And he's like, I'm not telling you anything. And she's like, all right, great. Now we got to call in Wonder Woman. So Wonder Woman shows up with the lasso of truth, and we see her little flashback is her getting into a relationship, having a relationship, and then losing the relationship with Steve Trevor. So they put the lasso around Weapons Master. At the same time, Superman, Batman, and Cyborg find the key in Arkham, and they're both talking about the same thing now of Weapons Master didn't, like, he was hired by someone, but they didn't care if they made weapons. They just wanted to find out more about how the League fought. And the key, because he's a telepath, knows a whole bunch of the League's, like, inner secrets and stuff. And this person the key was only broken out by somebody in order to learn those secrets. And in both cases, his name was Graves. So no points if you guessed that. So anyway, then we cut to Steve Trevor, who's tied up and being beaten in a chair. And he's not giving in. He's not giving up any info. And then this unseen figure comes up and he's just like, I'm going to get what I want. You're going to die here. The only difference is whether or not you die with your sister and her kids, or if they can make it out, because that's what's going to happen if you don't cooperate. And so he snaps like some fingers on Steve's hand, and Steve finally just gives in and says, all right, I'll tell you everything you need to know. And that's where the issue ends. Ooh, it's a start. It's something. I don't think I really needed the Flash, but maybe it's setting up to something of all these flashes of like them in their past of like, because it seems like we're going with a thing of secrets that the Justice League has, or like the individual members at least, but it seemed more like none of them were really secrets. I wouldn't even say all of them were uncomfortable memories. Like the Flashes was him just seeing some other cops being dicks to a inmate and saying, hey, he's got rights, and that's it. Like, that's the only... Everyone else was at least uncomfortable. Flash was just like, yeah, no, that was just the thing I had. So I don't know what the thread is going on with that. Everything else, though, in this I was very much a fan of. This is, however, like the third issue in a row of Steve Trevor being the guy. And if that's the way they're setting it up and they do something with it to pay it off, cool. But if he's just kind of around as a link between Man and Justice League, and basically he's just seeming like he's acting as the Lois Lane, where it's like, oh, I need to get to Superman, therefore I will take Lois Lane. Everyone else is like, oh, I need to get to the Justice League, therefore Steve Trevor, which seems a little bit weird to me. But regardless, it's good. It's a solid issue. I give it a 7.5. Jim Lee art did feel a little bit shaky at times, but on the average, on the whole, it is very good. So 7.5. Looking forward to seeing what David Graves is. Wonder Woman number 9, written by Brian Azzarello, art by Tony Atkins. Last issue left off with Wonder Woman trading herself for Zola in terms of being held in Hades, and Hades is going to marry her, so that's a thing. This issue picks up in Damascus, where Strife is talking to her brother War at an cafe just randomly on the street, basically saying like, hey, there's going to be a wedding with Hades. You going? And he's like, no. You get one shot at that, and I'm not showing up to the second wedding. And he's like, all right, well, I was hoping for an escort. I'm sure it will be a blast. And I'm going to rewind real quick, because over the course of this one page, in the background, you see this truck driving around the corner, parking itself next to this cafe, a dude very hurriedly getting out and running away, and the moment that Strife says blast, the whole thing explodes and kills everybody around except for these two gods. It's a hell of an eye catch. So War gets up, he puts on his hat, and he walks through the flames of this burned out building. And he's like, yeah, all right, I'm not going to this wedding, but if you excuse me, I have other things that I don't care about. And he just leaves. We cut back to Mount Etna, where the whole gang sans Wonder Woman. So Lennox, Zola, Hermes, Hephaestus, and the last guy I can't remember. They're all chilling out and just like talking like, okay, what's our game plan here? How are we going to get Wonder Woman out? And also, that was a really stupid plan to just leave her back there. Like, we should have done more to fight. But regardless, we got to do something. And Hermes straight up says, okay, Zola, you and I, like, we're out of this. I'm protecting you. Whatever these guys decide to do, that's fine, but you're not going back there, and I'm not going... I'm charged with protecting you. That is my oath. And at that point, Hephaestus is like, you know, like, it sucks, but we are invited to the wedding. Like, at least the gods are, and several of us have +1, so let's just go to the wedding and get her out then. And so they have a whole bunch. Hephaestus is like, all right, yeah, we're going to the wedding, but we are still going to bring some weapons. So he gets to work. We cut over to Wonder Woman, who is, I guess, getting prepared for her wedding, or she's at least she's powdered up. And there's a woman around her who's like, oh, Hades has a weird sense of love, but it's there, and it can sometimes be cruel, but, you know, he's going to be there. So he got you a gift already. And she opens up the windows out of her room into hell, and she sees a perfect recreation of Paradise Island. And Wonder Woman is, of course, in tears immediately. And the woman's like, yeah, that's the cruel part of the love. Sorry, I'll tell him that you don't want to be thinking about that. And then we see that this woman is bleeding. And Wonder Woman demands to see, like, did someone hurt you? Did someone do something to you? And she looks at the woman's wrists, and they are slit just top to bottom and bleeding heavily. And she's like, who did this to you? And she's like, I did this to me. I'm Persephone. I was Hades' wife once, but when I tried to escape, he said he would never let me leave, and he'd never let me forget my betrayal. So here we are. Then we cut to a 2-page spread here of Hermes and Zola just walking through the woods. And Zola's like, man, we should have done something. I don't feel good about this. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, Aphrodite shows up, who we don't ever actually get to see, but she's apparently a very beautiful and very naked woman. And immediately, like, everyone's all gaga over her because she's Aphrodite. And also she's the wife of Hephaestus, apparently, which is interesting, comparing Hephaestus to her. So at this point, Aphrodite's like, oh, Zola, you're blossoming and you're so beautiful. And she's like, oh my God, I feel so good about myself. But regardless, she basically just forwards the point of, look, here's the thing. Don't be angry at Hermes. He's literally just the messenger. Just consider the message that he's trying to protect here. You know, he's trying to save you and your child. So just a little bit of foreshadowing, I feel like, on that part. Then we go to Hades, who's sitting, waiting for the wedding to start. Not a lot of people are showing up from his family, and he seems a bit disappointed. He's also sitting on a throne of, like, someone's body, and I think it might be Kronos. I think it says later on. Regardless, he's just sitting on a throne of somebody. And Strife appears, and she's like, oh, hey, it's nice to see you. You mind if I have a drink? And she holds up a glass to Kronos' tears, which are apparently wine. And basically, she's just saying, like, you know, Hades, I would hate to see you have another marriage not work out. If only there were some way that you could find out whether or not Wonder Woman was telling the truth. So then we cut over to the rest of the gang arriving at the wedding. Hephaestus and Lennox and that last guy I still can't remember. And I think it's Arrows. I'm pretty sure that was Arrows. So they arrive and Lennox is like, all right, what do we do? How do we find her? And he's like, well, why don't we just wait? Because we know she's going to be at the wedding. So we'll just catch her then. He's like, isn't the whole point to let her not get to the wedding? And as they arrive, they see that in lieu of the entirety of the Gods family showing up, Hades invited all of the souls of hell. So the entire place is just this blinding white light of souls surrounding the entirety of the wedding ceremony. So then we go to Wonder Woman, who's dressed up in this crazy-ass, the best way I can describe it is like Scarlet Witch outfit with a cape of chains and hands, cut-off hands on it. And one of her quote-unquote bridesmaids threatens her, saying, like, if you do anything to hurt your husband, I'm going to rip out your throat. Have a nice wedding day. So they go down to the wedding ceremony on horseback, and Hades basically lets her know, like, here's the thing. I'm incapable of love, but I still want you to love me. And you say you love me, but I know that you only came here as part of a ruse. So I don't know if I can trust you. So I'm going to need you to tell me in truth. And she's like, okay, yeah, no, totally. I will prove my love however I need to. And he's like, good, cool. So I just want you to put on the ring and say you love me, and then I'll believe you. And as they approach the altar, we see that the ring is not a traditional ring. Because it's Hades, it's a noose. And the noose is made out of Wonder Woman's lasso of truth. So all she has to do is put that on and honestly admit that she loves Hades. Otherwise, he'll kill her. And that's where we leave off. Solid. Very good. This felt like more of a transitional issue more than a big plot point thing. It was just kind of getting to this point where the people who need to be here are here. And because like literally it was everybody who wasn't in hell needed to get to hell, and everybody who was in hell needed to get out. So it was just kind of the issue where everyone changed places. We got people where they needed to be, and we set up just this little cliffhanger of Wonder Woman has to admit that she loves Hades under the lasso of truth, which might be a problem. Art is fantastic. Tony Atkins really does a great job. There are a few, I want to say inking problems, but it's not, it's like colored inks. It's the outlines. I can't even say if it's really or not inks. It's heavier colors on some of them. I don't know how to good explain it, but it's there. So overall, I'm going to give this a 7.5. Very good. Looking forward to seeing how it's wrapped up. And Wonder Woman's just been solid the whole way through. Don't really feel like I have much more to say on that. Blue Beetle number 9, written by Tony Bedard, art by Marcio Takara. Last issue left off with Blue Beetle following an energy signature, which led him right into the path of Green Lantern Kyle Rayner, Red Lantern Bleeze, and Orange Lantern Glomulus from Green Lantern New Guardians. And this issue is basically just Green Lantern New Guardians. Like, ostensibly Blue Beetle is around and he does stuff, but this is just an extension of that book. So we open up and the bug suit's running down the list of who these guys are and is immediately like, these people are all maximum threat. I am deploying every countermeasure. And the suit immediately just starts firing off on Bleeze because Bleeze is, I guess, the biggest priority of taking out. But Jaime's trying to fight against it, of course, because he just wants to talk to them. He doesn't see them as a threat. But this whole time that this fight has started, we see there's somebody watching from a windowsill that's like, what? I was about to get my shot on Green Lantern, and now this weird blue guy showed up. I'm not going home empty-handed. So Glomulus, apparently it was a freezing gun that took out Bleeze. Glomulus goes over to try to thaw out Bleeze, but she just immediately busts out and is like, I am not going to let that bug get the better of me. Meanwhile, Green Lantern and Jaime have the best conversation of, dude, why are you attacking us? Dude, I don't mean to. It's the suit. And so they start fighting slightly. Bleeze comes at him full force, like ready to destroy everything. And Kyle's like, whoa, hold on, Bleeze. This is my home. I need you to back off. And he puts a Green Lantern muzzle on her. And as soon as he does so, The dude who's watching with the gun fires a shot and drains the energy out of Kyle's ring, leaving him with 0%. He starts falling out of the sky. Jaime swoops down and catches him. But before they can make it back to the ground, Bleez just body checks Jaime and like holds him down over top of him. And he's like, now who's going to save you? And the suit, God bless the suit. The suit says registering metabolic arousal. Cut away. Back to Texas, Jaime's family. They're hearing from the police, and police say, okay, here's the thing. We did hear from Jaime. He's at a boys' shelter up in New York City. And the family's like, oh, well, can we talk to him? Can we go see him? And it's like, well, yes and no. This shelter actually went up in flames yesterday, and everyone just scattered back out to the streets, but we expect he's going to show back up soon enough, so just hold tight. And his sister's inside being like, is the shelter the one that's currently on super fail with the Blue Beetle around? I think the bad Blue Beetle followed Jaime to New York. So then cut back to Manhattan. Bleez is still straddling Blue Beetle, and he's like, wait, hold on, I tried to save Green Lantern. And he's like, nah, you're the one who attacked him. He's like, I didn't do that, someone else hit him and drained him of his ring. And then Kyle comes to him, and he's like, Bleez, he's telling the truth, he's not the one who attacked me. And then Bleez like grabs him by the shoulders again, pulls him in close, and he's like, who are you working with? And this dude's like, registering arousal again. And he's he's arguing with the suit. It's like, stop saying that, I'm not aroused. And Bleez is like, ew, what? And she jumps off of him, and he's like covering up his crotch, being like, I don't know, sometimes the suit morphs sometimes, and you got to do some. I love this whole section. This whole thing here of just a teenage boy and Bleez, like, mwah, magnifique. Anyway, so another shot comes out of the building, and Glomulus gets hit by it, which then just causes Glomulus to disintegrate into nothing. And we see this guy who just seems like a bigger, badder Deathstroke, but also has like tentacles on his face because he's an alien, comes down, and he's like, here's the deal. I'm here to take in Green Lantern because he's got a price on his head. We cut over to Texas again, and we see that, what's her name? Brenda is currently talking to her aunt's lawyer, and the lawyer's like, here's the deal. I can't tell you what your aunt did, but I can tell you she left you a very significant sum of money, and I am willing to put it in a trust for you, and it is going to change your life until she either returns or is declared legally dead. So that's just a one-page furthering that. So anyway, Green Lantern, because he doesn't have any juice left in his battery, he's being held hostage by this guy who's going to bring him in for a bounty to the Guardians, actually. Apparently the Guardians sent this guy after Kyle and gave him like emotional draining bullets, and that's the whole reason he was able to do all this stuff. So Bleez is like trying to attack, not so much to save Kyle as much as she just, I mean, it is to save Kyle, but she is unwilling to say that that's the reason why. So at this point, Jaime just flies away, and they think he's abandoning the battle, but he's actually busting into Kyle's apartment to find the power battery, which he gets out, and as the other guy is busy fighting Bleez, Kyle's able to slip away for a second, goes, sees Jaime, and gets 100% full charge back on his battery. He bottles up the bounty hunter, and the other guy that the bounty hunter was with, who was just in the room, just slyly sneaks away down the street to go do something else. And then finally there's just a moment where everyone can talk, and they're like, all right, so Blue Beetle, what can we do for you? And he's like, well, I came to you because I need help being a superhero, and I don't feel like I'm any good at it, and I figured there'd be superheroes in New York, so can you help me? And we get a flashback to Kyle's early days, a.k.a. when he found his girlfriend in a refrigerator, and he's like, yeah, I'm not so good to talk about being a new superhero, so, but like maybe we'll just, let's go back to my apartment. So they go back up there. There's this awkward moment of Bleez and Blue Beetle just sitting on opposite sides of a couch, and they get to talking for a little bit, and he's like, all right, first things first, I need to, like, I dropped the bad guy off over at the DEO, but we need to figure out what's going on with you here real quick. So did you, like, sneak into like a mad scientist lab or something? He's like, no, this bug just attached itself to me and it really doesn't trust you guys, so it's not letting me tell you a lot. And he starts like suiting himself. He takes it off his face, and Green Lantern's like, whoa, hold on now. Keep your identity a secret. That's something like, I don't want to know your real name, and I'm not going to tell you mine, but, do that. So he does a scan on the bug suit and discovers that it's Reach Infiltrator Tech, which that's like the second time Jaime's heard the name Reach, and he's like, I don't even know what that means. What's going on? And the Ring elaborates, and he's like, the Reach, ancient enemies of the Guardians of the Universe and Oa, also currently overrunning the Blue Lantern planet. And Kyle's like, what the hell? How long has this been going on? We gotta go. So he and Bleez immediately just like get in action. It's like, did you know anything about this? And he's like, I don't know anything about the Reach at all. Sorry. I'm just trying to figure out how to be a superhero. He's like, all right, here's the deal. You can't stay here, but we gotta go. If I can find you when we get back, I will talk to you then. But we've got to be in Green Lantern New Guardians. So they fly off Earth. Bleez says she's not going to be joining him. She's going off to do stuff in Red Lanterns. And then Jaime's just stuck standing there like, all right, well, what do I do now? And that's where the end of the book is. I like it. That part with Bleez and Jaime, oh God, that is like, in all of these other teen label books, like the yellow labeled ones, it just feels like an adult book, but like they put teenagers in it. This is the only book that actually feels like an actual teenager is in this suit, and I love it. I love it so much. I'm giving this one an 8.5. My only qualm with it is that it is more of a Green Lantern New Guardians book than it is a Blue Beetle book. This is Green Lantern New Guardians featuring Blue Beetle, not the other way around, but still great issue. Love the humor in it, and I cannot wait to see where it goes from here. Legion of Superheroes number 9, written by Paul Levitz, art by Francis Portela. Last issue, we discovered that the Fearsome Five, I believe, the Fatal Five, one of those fives, were possibly being reassembled. And this issue ostensibly still deals with that, I guess, or something. So, Harmonia, Brainiac 5, and Dream Girl are all chilling in Metropolis University, trying to find some way that they can get back in time, which apparently is just locked off from them right now. And Dream Girl comes up and she's like, yeah, maybe there's a reason that the universe is not letting us do this. Maybe we just need to let it sit. And Brainiac 5's like, nah, screw that. I'm smarter than the universe. So he keeps on trying to get through it. Meanwhile, a weird black hole portal thing opens up in the middle of the lab, and two monsters come through named Dis and Trog. And as soon as they come out, Brainiac tries activating his little personal shield bubble, but it malfunctions. So Dis tries coming after him. Dream Girl kicks him in the face. Trog goes after Harmonia, lands a few good hits. We cut over to the prison planet of Takron Galtos, where Mon-El and Gravity Kid are currently looking at one of the members of the, I'm trying to find the name of it, Fearsome Five? Fatal Five. It's Fatal Five. Okay, moving forward. Anyway, one of the members is still locked up in like a solid cell of a Nurtron, which apparently nobody can escape, period. And so that if they're able to remake the Fatal Five, they can't get him. He's still super stuck. So anyway, cut back to the fight, and they're holding their own a little bit against what's his name, Trog, but this is actually landing some good hits on Dream Girl. Brainiac throws some piece of machinery at him and like logics out like, okay, my shield doesn't work, the time travel doesn't work, and my Legion flight wing isn't working. So it's not just a normal technical malfunction. Something bigger's going on here. And she's like, can you please help with the fight, for God's sakes? But this lands a good hit on Brainiac 5, knocking him out, and then gets one of his weird tentacle things wrapped around Dream Girl and says like, all right, I got two of them. I'm going to go back through the portal. Go ahead and beat up Harmonia or die, Trog. Bye. Goes back through the portal. And Harmonia just immediately knocks Trog on his ass. Like, there's no way Trog's making it out of this alive. Cut to Legion headquarters where, what's his name? Cosmic Boy? I'm going to go with Boy. Cosmic Boy is running like, main computer, and he's like, Brainiac and Dream Girl just dropped off of the grid. Maybe they got time travel working again. Although, there's also some other weird stuff going on. Hey, this guy, I forget, he's the one who can, Ultra Boy, I think? Whatever. Point being, he sends him over to go check on it. And then they make an all-points bulletin saying, like, hey, we're spread a bit thin, but I just need someone around to maybe check on this because it's going to be a big deal. So Ultra Boy shows up, sees the Trog is still fighting Harmonia. He gets in there. He uses invulnerability to defend from a major punch, and then changes his power to super strength and knocks out Trog. And so the portal is still open for a second. And he's like, oh, they took our friends through that portal. And Ultra Boy holds up Trog and it's just like, where are your leaders? And then Trog just disintegrates into nothing. Or I should say, disintegrates into a pile of goo. To which Ultra Boy's like, all right, well, that's not going to help. And the portal closes as well. Fantastic. And then we cut over to see where the portal led to. And it's the Dominion with the Dominators inside. And Dis comes out with Dream Girl and Brainiac 5. And he's just like, hey, I brought the really smart one that you wanted. Also, this girl, she's also smart. Not in the same way, but I think you could probably use her. And the Dominator's like, all right, good work. You did a good job. Also, you got the Legion flight rings. Make sure you do not use them and keep them safe because they will disable our technology. So we cut back down to the fight scene. Police are there now, and they're all investigating what happened and the goop and whatnot. Until they finally scan the DNA of it, and they realize, oh, wait, the DNA in this, the only thing that we have to match for is Dominator stuff. And they're like, oh, the Dominators took our friends. Okay, well, what are we going to do, guys? So they open it up, and they're like, all right, so we've got the coordinates to where we believe the Dominators may be, and we're going to have to go after them, whatever. Starboy comes up, and he was, of course, dating Dream Girl. So he's very anxious of, like, where is she? Make sure she's safe. But then Mon-El comes in, and he's like, hold it. I just got word. We're not to cross the lines made by the treaty. We don't have enough evidence that the Dominators actually did anything yet. And Starboy's like, are you kidding me? My girlfriend's out there, and you're saying I can't do anything? Screw this. I quit. I'm going to go get her myself. And that's where we leave off. I followed it. Fine. I kind of know the names. They're using a couple more name bubbles throughout for people that we haven't seen in like an issue or two. Very useful. Keep doing that. I mean, it seems like an actual coherent story. I'm following the here's the thing. The two threads going on right now are the Dominators and the Fatal Five. I follow the Dominators thing. The Fatal Five relies on me knowing stuff that happened before this series, and therefore I don't care. I genuinely, it's just, as soon as I read it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's a thing, and then I forget it. Because it's not doing anything to make me care about stuff that happened before this series. Everyone else is just like, oh, this thing happened, and I'm so sad. But I'm like, do something. Show me something. Anything. You're just telling me you're sad about it. Like, do something. But the Dominators thing's fine, I guess. Art-wise, it's okay. I mean, I'm pretty sure that Portello's done most of the art on this book. Honestly, I feel like the Legionnaires are probably the weakest part. All of the aliens, like the weird-looking ones, are where the art gets better. So, take that as you will. Overall, 6. Like, it feels almost a bit high, honestly, but I'm willing to give it a 6. It's okay. It's not great. It has some issues, but it's okay. So, what do you want from me? The Shade, number 8, written by James Robinson, art by Jill Thompson. Last issue was the end of the, 3-issue long, like, Vampire in Spain thing. This issue, basically just a one and done. Just a one-shot of him in 1901, meeting up with another member of his family, and having a little chat. So, we pick up in Opium Den in Paris, where just smoking the day away, talking to some other dude who's there, and just relishing in the finer things in life. And he's like, oh, I'd been a villain for a little bit at this point. My transformation's been complete, but I've also done some good things as well. I was just the Shade at this point. And he asks for the guy's name, and he turns out his name is Albert Caldecott, which, of course, Caldecott is his family name. And he's like, oh, weird how this happens. But we don't have a lot of time to spend on that because we cut over to 50 miles south of Paris at the exact same moment where a guy is talking to, I believe, the mayor of a small village of Saint-Dubris. And he's like, so, I have killed every single member of this village. All of your constituents, your wife, and your children. Some of them I ravaged, some of them I ate. But you are the only person left in this town alive. And he's just like, why? Why would you do this? Why would you do awful things? And it's like, because I want to. That's just the way I am. Also, here's the thing that you may not know. Because of the way I am, all the people that I killed don't get to go to the pearly gates. No, they go to hell, or at least some manner of speaking. And down there, they are tortured incessantly, including your wife. Your wife is currently taking a demon right now. I'm letting you know that because I'm so evil. And the mayor just has a break, and he's just like, if you're going to kill me, just do it already. Make it quick. He's like, oh, no, I always leave one person behind so that they can share my story. Goodbye. And he just leaves, and this giant blood-filled mess of a village covered in bodies. We'll get back to him. So anyway, back to Paris. It's just a lot of talking. It's like 4 straight pages of just talking. But we get basically the backstory of Albert Caldecott, and apparently there was some weird magic society that I think was actually mentioned earlier in this book called the Order of the Golden Dawn, which apparently Crowley was a member of. Again, sounds familiar, not able to quite place it. But this guy, he joined into the order pretty much just as it was falling apart. Like, it had he got in right at the very end, and he was like, all right, whatever. But he met this guy named Otto Haden, and he was a very skilled magician, and he was also Albert's lover, which, of course, is not a thing that's allowed back then, but Shay doesn't care. He's like, yeah, whatever. So they get to talking, and apparently, because he was such a skilled magician, at one point he summoned a minor demon to be a servant, a.k.a. a homunculus. And it's running joke in this issue, at least, that Shade doesn't know how to spell homunculus. He's just like, he as he's giving his narration over and over again, you see him like start to spell it, and he's like, the minor demon. But the control over the demon only holds so long as the person who casts the spell has that like strength. And while they were in the order, Otto was very strong, but over time he took part in like opium every once in a while, and then eventually at one point his hold over the demon slipped for just a little bit, which gave the demon enough time to eat Otto's soul and then use his body for unspeakable things, aka killing entire villages. And for some reason, maybe it's his own magic ability, maybe it's because of his bloodline, whatever, maybe it's because he was present at the time that the spell was made, but this demon has some sort of tie to Albert, and he keeps on coming back and telling Albert that he has like all the horrible things he's done, and tells him to do horrible things as well, and if he ever tries to run, that he'll kill Albert and eat his soul or whatever. And so he's like, oh, well, that's an issue, but hey, how about you tell me about your family real quick? And basically Albert says like, oh, my grandmother, her husband left her, wink wink, and Shade lets on slightly that he knows stuff about the family, and then just like quickly brushes it away. But apparently his wife, the Albert's grandmother, is still alive, and he just wants to be able to get away from this demon so that he can go back and be with his family, because he had to leave once they discovered that he was into guys. So at that point, Shade's like, all right, well, leave it up to me. I'll take care of it. So Shade hangs out in Albert's apartment, whereas Albert goes and hangs out in his. And once Otto comes back the following Thursday, Shade shows up and is just like, okay, here's the thing. I'm here to take you on because you are a itty-bitty tiny little demon, and I am not scared of you in the least. And Demon's like, itty-bitty tiny little, let me show you how itty-bitty tiny little I... And he rips off Otto's skin pretty much and shows the demon underneath, which then grows to just this enormous looking height. And he's throwing fireballs at Shade, and he's like, yeah, no, he's big, but that has nothing to do with strength. For example, I'm pretty sure all he does is just fires a loogie into the mouth of this demon, who then like chokes on it, screams such beauty, and then explodes into 100 piles of like demonic ash and blood. And he's like, all right, to hell with you. So then we see Shade going with Albert back to his family home in Belgrave Square, London, England. And he's like, oh, what should I even say? Will they take me back? And he's like, yes, of course. But if you have to be with men in the future, maybe be a bit more discreet about it. And so he goes and he meets back up with his grandmother. And he's like, oh, I simply must introduce you. And she's like, no, I'm fine. I don't do good well with these sort of reunions. But you go on. Have a nice life. And he's just happy to have seen his old wife again. She died like maybe a year after this. And he says, I was happy to see her, and when I found out she died, I can't quite recall if I shed a tear or not. And that's the end of the issue. Pretty much just all wrapped up on its own. But I liked it. It was a nice little solid thing. Very talky. Like I said, like 5 pages of just, okay, here's what the family's been up to in the 50 years or whatever since you left or whatever. And it's fine. I get it. But at the same point, I'm not so attached to the Shade's life that I get much of anything out of this. I'm more so interested in the current events. I mean, okay, that's weird to say because this book jumps around in time a lot. This was literally a history lesson in a story that was already set in 1901. Like, it was history to them in 1901. So it's a bit too much one level removed. If we were to see the things that they're talking about happening in real time, I think I would like that. But just having 5 pages of them saying like, oh yes, my grandmother, well, after her husband left, she built her own chemistry empire. And I'm like, show me that. I want to see that. Just do that. Why do we have to have someone else tell it? And it's because we got 12 issues and they wanted to do a demon. But regardless, overall, I'm going to give this one I'll give it a 7. It's solid, but not outstanding in any particular way. It's just a nice little standalone issue that's just doing its own thing. And I don't have many major issues with that, but it's also nothing standout either. So see how, I think we're 2/3 of the way done. So yeah, only 4 more issues left of the Shade, and we'll see if that main story can wrap itself up anytime soon. And that's it. That's all the comics that came out from DC Comics this May 16th, 2012. And before you click off or do something else with your time, let me just put this little reminder here that this month has a 5th week in it. At the end of May 30th, 2022 is the release date. We are going to be doing a whole bunch of backup stories, including the Shazam stories that pretty much are the basis of all modern Shazam. So be sure to tune into that, along with a bunch of other cool stuff we'll be covering. Anyway, this episode, let's talk about what's coming up next week. Next week, May 23rd, 2012, 13 comics, including the new #1 issue of Batman Incorporated, as well as the #9 issues of Batman the Dark Knight, Superman, Green Lantern New Guardians, Aquaman, The Flash, The Fury of Firestorm, The Savage Hawkman, All-Star Western, Voodoo, Teen Titans, I, Vampire, and Justice League Dark. Teen Titans, of course, the Culling finale. Let's focus on that part. Stay positive. It's the finale. And I'm sure that it won't have any lasting impacts on the DC universe as a whole. Honestly, it won't really. I know that for a fact. It was such a nothing event. Sorry. I know I'm a broken record. Anyway, let me just tell you where you can find me. You can find me on Twitter at DC Comics Podcast. All one word. Use the hashtag New52. And additionally, we are on Patreon. For as low as $1, you can get some cool stuff, I think. I'm not sure. I put in too much money into it myself. So be like the cool kids and do that. And that is Mild Fuzz TV on Patreon. Probably should have led with that. I'm tired. I'm going to retire for now. Thank you very much for listening or watching or transcribing this into Morse code. It's always very appreciated. And always try to remember that if it ain't broke, don't fix it.